We dive deep into the explosive story of a racist cop whose brutal act in a seedy bar spirals into a dangerous confrontation, one that exposes dark secrets and shakes the very foundations of power. Imagine a night where every second counts, and one moment can change everything. Are you ready to be gripped by a narrative that will leave you questioning who the real enemy is? Before we jump in, I want to hear from you. What would you do if you found yourself caught in a web of corruption and danger with no way out? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And while you're here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends, so you never miss a moment of our thrilling stories. Also, let's get a sense of our global family. Drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Stay tuned as we unravel every twist and turn of this electrifying story. Enjoy, and let's get started. The dim glow of the neon lights flickered outside Grady's Roadhouse, a rundown bar on the outskirts of town. Inside, the scent of spilled beer and cigarette smoke hung thick in the air as country music droned from an old jukebox. The night had been uneventful, until Deputy Rick Slater walked in. Slater was a 6'4", burly man with a buzz cut and a sneer that rarely left his face. He carried himself like a king in his own domain, a badge pinned to his chest that gave him the power to do whatever he pleased. His uniform was stained with grease from an earlier meal, his eyes bloodshot from too many beers. He wasn't supposed to be drinking on duty. But when had rules ever applied to him? Across the room, Maya Carter, a 17-year-old high school senior, sat in a booth with her friend Jasmine. The two girls had snuck into the bar, using fake IDs they had bought from a guy downtown. It was supposed to be just a night of fun, one drink, then home. But fate had other plans. Slater's eyes locked onto Maya. Dark skin. Curly hair. A face he didn't recognize. He didn't like it. He didn't like her. With a smirk, he pushed away from the counter, gripping his half-empty beer bottle as he swaggered toward the girls. Jasmine noticed him first, stiffening in her seat. "Maya, we should go," she whispered, but it was too late. Slater slammed his palm on the table, making their drinks rattle. Maya flinched but met his gaze. She had been raised not to back down, not to show fear to bullies like him. Well, Slater drawled, "What do we have here? Two little girls playing dress-up in my bar?" Maya's jaw clenched. "We're not little girls." Slater chuckled. He leaned down, close enough that Maya could smell the alcohol on his breath. "That so? 'Cause you look real young to me," he sneered. His fingers tapped the edge of the beer bottle he was holding. Maya's fingers curled into fists under the table. "We were just leaving." Slater's eyes darkened. He didn't like being dismissed, especially not by her. "Now, why would you do that?" he said, straightening up and blocking their way. "You two came here to have fun, didn't ya? So let's have fun." Jasmine grabbed Maya's wrist. "Come on, Maya. Let's." "Shut up." Slater's voice was ice cold. Jasmine's breath caught in her throat. Maya's pulse hammered, but she didn't move. "You're drunk," she said. "You should go home." Slater chuckled again, but this time there was no amusement. "I think you should have a drink, sweetheart." Before Maya could react, he grabbed her jaw, forcing her mouth open, and jammed the neck of the beer bottle past her lips. The bitter liquid burned down her throat. She gagged, struggling, but Slater held her tight. Jasmine screamed, knocking over their table as she tried to pry him away. The bar erupted in chaos. A few people jumped from their seats, some shouting, others frozen in horror. Maya shoved Slater with all her strength, breaking free and spitting out the beer. Her eyes burned with rage and humiliation. Slater wiped his wet hand on his uniform, laughing. "What's wrong, princess? Can't handle a drink?" Maya's hands trembled, not from fear, but from the sheer rage boiling inside her, and then, suddenly, the door burst open. A gust of cold wind rushed in, making the neon sign outside flicker. Every head turned toward the entrance, and standing there, bathed in the dim glow of the bar lights, was a man whose presence silenced the entire room. Slater's smirk faded. The color drained from his face, his fingers twitched toward his holster, because he knew this man, and in that moment, for the first time in his life, Deputy Rick Slater felt fear. The air in Grady's Roadhouse had turned ice cold, the weight of an unseen force pressing down on everyone inside. Maya coughed, wiping beer from her lips, her throat burning from the assault. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from the pure, molten rage coursing through her veins. Slater, however, was frozen. His grip instinctively hovered near his holstered gun, but he didn't draw it. Not yet. because the man standing in the doorway was no ordinary man. He was tall, over 6 feet, with broad shoulders and a stance that radiated authority. His dark skin gleamed under the dim bar lights, his chiseled face cold and unreadable. A deep scar ran down his right cheek, a reminder of battles fought long before tonight. His eyes, like burning coals, locked onto Slater with a gaze so intense it could cut steel. He stepped forward, slowly. Purposefully, a single step, the wooden floor creaked beneath his weight, Slater's throat dried up. His pulse hammered in his ears. He knew this man, and if he was here, that meant trouble. Who the hell is that? Someone whispered. Jasmine, still gripping Maya's hand, swallowed hard. Maya, she whispered shakily, do you know him? Maya's eyes stayed on the man. She felt something inside her, a sense of relief, but also an overwhelming tension. Yeah, she whispered back. I know him. The man's gaze flicked to Maya, then back to Slater. His lips pressed into a thin line. Maya, his deep voice rumbled, are you hurt? Maya hesitated, only for a fraction of a second, before shaking her head. I'm fine. The man's eyes swept the room, taking in the spilled beer, the overturned table, the way Slater's fingers still hovered near his gun. His expression hardened. I saw what happened, he said. His voice was calm, too calm. I don't think she's fine. Slater finally found his voice. He took a step forward, puffing up his chest like a cornered dog trying to make itself look bigger. I don't know who the hell you think you are, he spat, but this is my town. And when I tell someone to drink, they drink. The man's eyes flashed dangerously. Your town. He echoed. His voice dangerously low. Slater's confidence faltered for a split second, but then he sneered, you better walk out that door, right now, before I arrest your ass for interfering with police business. The man didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even breathe. The tension in the bar had become so thick, you could cut it with a knife. Then, in one swift motion, the man took another step forward, and suddenly, Slater's hand went for his gun, but before he could even touch the grip, the man moved like lightning. His fist shot forward, slamming into Slater's wrist with bone-crushing force. Slater screamed, staggering backward as his gun clattered to the floor. His wrist was bent at a sickening angle. The bones inside shattered beyond repair. The bar erupted in gasps and shouts. Holy shit. Someone yelled. Slater cradled his ruined hand, eyes wide with disbelief. He had never been disarmed like that, bastard. He stammered, pain making his voice waver. Do you have any idea who I am? The man bent down slowly, picking up Slater's fallen gun. He examined it, turning it over in his hands like it was a cheap toy, then he looked back at Slater. Yeah. I know exactly who you are. Slater's stomach twisted into a knot of pure dread, because the way the man said it. He knew something dangerous, something that could destroy him, before Slater could even react. The man suddenly turned, tossing the gun across the bar with a powerful flick of his wrist. It slammed into the wall, embedding itself so deep that only the handle stuck out. Another stunned silence filled the room. This wasn't just some random guy, this was someone with training, someone who had done things that most men could never dream of surviving. Slater stumbled backward, his face paling. You're making a mistake, he hissed through gritted teeth. Attacking a cop in his own bar. That's a death sentence. The man took another step forward. This time, when he spoke, there was no mercy in his voice. I don't think you understand something, Deputy Slater, he said. You've already signed your death sentence. You just don't know it yet. Slater's legs nearly gave out, because if this man knew his name without being told, that meant he had been waiting for this moment, and that terrified him more than anything. A deathly silence settled over Grady's Roadhouse as the towering stranger took another step toward Deputy Slater. The scent of stale beer, sweat, and fear clung to the air like a thick fog. Maya barely breathed. She had seen her fair share of fights before, school brawls, street scuffles, but this? This was something else. This wasn't just a bar fight, this was a reckoning. Slater clutched his shattered wrist, his face twisted in pain. His mind was scrambling, trying to piece together who the hell this man was, and why he was here. The stranger stood still, his stance relaxed, but everyone in the room knew he was ready to strike at a moment's notice. His dark eyes never left Slater. Tell me, the man said, his voice smooth and deadly calm, is this how you treat all the women in your town? Slater's lips curled into a snarl, but his confidence was gone. He coughed, spitting blood onto the wooden floor. She had a fake ID. I was just teaching her a lesson. The stranger's face remained unreadable. A lesson. His tone was mild, almost conversational. By shoving a beer bottle down her throat. Slater hesitated. The weight of the question settled over him like a thick chain, dragging him further into the abyss, and then, like a fool, he made his final mistake. She's just some damn kid, he muttered. Just another little. The man moved, faster than anyone could react. 1 second, he was standing still. The next, Slater was airborne. The stranger's fist slammed into Slater's gut with a force so powerful it lifted the burly cop off his feet. Slater's body crashed onto the bar counter. Glass shattered. Bottles toppled. The bartender scrambled back, knocking over a stool as he watched in shock. Slater rolled onto the ground, coughing violently, gasping for air. Someone in the bar made a move toward their phone. The stranger didn't even look at them. Call anyone, and I'll break your fingers, he said, his voice so cold and controlled that no one doubted he meant it. The guy with the phone froze mid-dial. His hands shook as he slowly set it back down. Slater was writhing on the floor, his chest heaving. His ribs screamed in pain. He had taken punches before, had been in brawls, had thought he was tough, but this felt like he had been hit by a goddamn sledgehammer. He struggled to sit up, every nerve in his body firing in agony. But before he could, a polished boot pressed down on his chest, pinning him to the filthy wooden floor. The stranger crouched down, his knee resting on Slater's sternum. He leaned in real close, so only Slater could hear his next words. I know everything about you. Slater's body went rigid, his breath hitched, and for the first time in his miserable life, he felt true, paralyzing fear. The stranger continued, his tone so soft, so controlled, that it was more terrifying than if he had shouted, I know the men you run with. I know the deals you've made. I know how many innocent people you've hurt because you thought you could get away with it. Slater's skin turned clammy. His mind raced. Who the hell was this guy? The stranger's dark eyes pierced through him like a blade. I know about the money, he murmured. I know about the drugs, the setups, the people you framed. Slater's entire body locked up, his pupils shrunk to pinpricks, because those weren't just accusations, they were facts. The stranger pressed his knee down a little harder. Slater let out a wheeze. His breath coming in short, pained bursts. You think you're some kind of untouchable king? The man's voice was still calm, still deadly. You think this town is yours? Slater tried to buck him off, but the man's grip was like iron. Let me tell you something, the stranger continued, his tone almost conversational, like he was just chatting about the weather. I own men like you. I break men like you. Slater saw it then, the look in his eyes. It wasn't anger, it wasn't even hatred, it was cold, calculated judgment, like he had already decided what to do with Slater. Slater wasn't in control anymore, he was the one being hunted. His mouth went dry. His mind scrambled for a way out. He had connections, he had powerful friends. If he could just, whatever you think you know, Slater gasped, his voice breaking, you can't prove anything. The stranger's lips twitched, I don't need proof. He stood up, removing his weight from Slater's chest. Slater gasped for air, his ribs on fire. His mind was spinning. What the hell was happening? The stranger turned to Maya, his expression softer now. Are you ready to go? Maya hesitated, her eyes flicking between him and the broken mess of a man on the floor. Then, she nodded. The man turned back to Slater one last time. I could end you right now, he murmured. But that would be too easy. Slater's stomach twisted. He had never been more afraid in his life, because something told him, this was only the beginning. The moment Maya stepped out of Grady's roadhouse, she felt the night air hit her like a wave, cool, crisp, and carrying the scent of damp pavement. But it wasn't enough to wash away the sickening memory of what had just happened inside. Her hands still trembled, her throat still ached. She wiped at her lips, as if that could erase the feel of the beer bottle Slater had forced into her mouth, but there was no erasing what had happened, or what had just been set in motion. The towering man beside her, the stranger who had obliterated Slater without breaking a sweat, didn't say anything at first. He just walked, his long strides measured, his eyes scanning the quiet streets. Maya had so many questions. But one burned hotter than the rest. Who are you? She asked, her voice still hoarse. The man didn't stop walking. Didn't even look at her, but he finally answered, I'm your father. Maya froze in place, a sharp, dizzying rush of shock and disbelief hit her like a punch to the gut. What? She whispered. The man turned to face her now. Under the streetlight, she could finally see him clearly, his chiseled jawline, his piercing dark eyes, the faint scars along his cheek and temple. A face she didn't recognize. She shook her head, stepping back. No. No, that's not possible. His gaze didn't waver. I'm not here to convince you, Maya, he said. I'm here because I need you to listen. She staggered backward, her heart pounding. Her mother had never mentioned a father. Never spoken about him, never given her so much as a name, and now, this mysterious, dangerous man had just materialized out of nowhere, claiming to be him. Why should I believe you? She demanded. The man took a step forward. You don't have to, he said. But you need to hear what I'm about to say. Maya's instincts told her to run. To turn and bolt into the night and never look back, but another part of her, the part still reeling from what had just happened inside that bar, knew she needed to hear him out, so she clenched her jaw, crossed her arms, and gave him a look that said, start talking. He nodded. You're in danger, he said simply. Maya let out a short, humorless laugh. Yeah, no kidding, she snapped. That psychopath cop just tried to kill me in there. The man's expression darkened. That was just the beginning, he said. A chill ran through her. What do you mean? She asked cautiously. He exhaled sharply, glancing around before speaking again. You don't know who Slater really is, he said. He's not just some small-town bully in a uniform. He's connected. He's been running a dirty operation for years, and tonight, he looked her dead in the eyes. You just became his biggest problem. Maya's stomach dropped. She could still see the look on Slater's face as he lay on the floor of Grady's. Wheezing, humiliated, powerless for the first time in his life, and men like Slater, they didn't handle humiliation well. Her pulse quickened. So what? He's going to come after me? She asked. The man's expression was unreadable. Not just you, he said. Maya's chest tightened. Her mom. She knew Slater was cruel, but would he really go after her mother? As if reading her thoughts, the man said, if we don't move fast, he will. Maya swallowed hard. She wanted to reject this. To believe that the nightmare inside the bar had ended the second she walked out the door, but deep down, she knew better. She took a shaky breath. What do we do? The man studied her for a moment before speaking. You come with me. Maya stiffened. Where? Somewhere safe, he said. Somewhere he can't find you. Maya hesitated. Everything inside her screamed not to trust him, but if he was right, if Slater really was as dangerous as he claimed, then staying in this town wasn't an option. Her mother, she needed to see her mother first. I'm not going anywhere until I get my mom, she said firmly. The man didn't argue. He just nodded. Let's move. They moved quickly through the dark streets, sticking to the shadows. The town was eerily quiet, the distant hum of traffic the only sound in the night. As they reached Maya's house, she froze. Something was wrong. The porch light was on. But the front door was slightly ajar. Her stomach twisted. Mom. She called out. No answer. A suffocating wave of dread washed over her. The man stepped past her, his posture immediately alert, his hand hovering near his hip. Maya swallowed hard and followed him inside. The living room was a mess, furniture overturned, papers scattered across the floor. Her heart pounded. Mom. She called again, louder this time. Still nothing. Then, from the kitchen, a low groan. Maya sprinted toward the sound. Her mother was on the floor, slumped against the cabinets. Blood smeared her temple. Maya dropped to her knees beside her. Mom. Mom, wake up. Her mother stirred, her eyelids fluttering. Then, her eyes snapped open, and she gasped. Maya, she rasped, gripping her daughter's arm. You have to go. Now. Panic surged through Maya. What happened? She demanded. Her mother's eyes flicked to the man standing behind Maya, and then, with a shuddering breath, she whispered something that sent ice through Maya's veins. It's not just Slater. They're all coming for you. Maya's breath came fast and shallow as her mother's words sank in. Not just Slater. They're all coming for you. The air in the room seemed to grow heavier, the silence crackling with something dark and dangerous. Maya looked at the man, the one who had appeared out of nowhere, claiming to be her father. His expression didn't change. If anything, his jaw tightened, and his eyes darkened with a lethal edge. Maya turned back to her mother. Who? She whispered. Who's coming? Her mother struggled to sit up, wincing as she pressed a hand to the gash on her temple. The whole department, she choked out. Slater's friends. His boss. Everyone. Maya's stomach plummeted. This was worse than she thought. She had just been trying to survive Slater's twisted cruelty, she hadn't realized she had set off a war. Her father, if that's really who he was, stepped forward, his movements calm, controlled. "We need to leave," he said, his voice sharp, decisive. "Right now." Maya turned back to her mother. "You're coming with us." Her mother's eyes filled with pain. "I can't." Maya froze. "What?" Her mother clutched her arm, her grip weak but desperate. "Maya, listen to me," she said, her voice trembling. "If I go, they'll come after us even harder. I'll slow you down." Maya shook her head. "No. I'm not leaving you." Her mother's grip tightened, her fear raw and real. "Maya. If you stay, we both die." Maya's breath hitched, the world was spinning, tilting sideways. She felt like she was trapped in a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. Her father, the man who had saved her, spoke again. "We don't have time for this." Maya swallowed hard, trying to shove down the panic, the overwhelming fear clawing at her chest. Then, a sound outside, a car pulling up, tires crunching on gravel. Maya's father moved instantly, his eyes sharp, his body tense like a coiled predator. He peeked through the window, then he turned to them. "They're here." Maya's pulse skyrocketed, the next few seconds blurred together. Her father grabbed her by the arm, pulling her toward the back door. "No." She resisted, trying to turn back toward her mother. Her mother shoved her away. "Go, Maya." She hissed. Then, the front door exploded inward. Men in dark uniforms poured into the house, guns raised, voices barking orders. "Get on the ground. Hands where we can see them." Maya barely had time to react before her father threw open the back door, dragging her outside. Gunshots shattered the air, ripping into the kitchen walls as they ducked and ran. Maya stumbled, her ears ringing, her breath ragged with terror. Her father never let go of her wrist. He moved like a ghost, cutting through the shadows of the backyard, dragging her toward the alley. Maya's mind was screaming, her mother was still inside. But she didn't have time to think. More gunfire, voices shouting, heavy boots pounding against pavement as the officers flooded into the backyard, their flashlights slicing through the night. Her father pulled her behind a fence, his back pressed against the wood, his breath steady despite the chaos. Maya was gasping for air, her hands shaking, her heart hammering against her ribs. "We have to go back," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of sirens in the distance. Her father turned to her, his expression like carved stone. "No," he said. "We move forward." Maya gritted her teeth, rage and grief burning inside her, but before she could protest, a voice rang out from the house. "Find them." Slater. Maya froze. That voice, the same voice that had snarled at her in the bar. The same voice that had laughed while shoving a beer bottle into her mouth. Her stomach turned, and now, that same voice was hunting her down. Her father gave her one last, searching look, then, without another word, he grabbed her wrist, yanked her through a break in the fence, and they disappeared into the night. They ran for what felt like forever, weaving through dark streets, sticking to the alleys. Maya didn't know where they were going. She didn't care. All she could think about was her mother, still inside that house, and Slater, that monster, that sick, twisted coward who had just unleashed hell on her life. She clenched her fists, her breath coming fast and furious. She had never hated anyone more. Her father pulled her into a narrow alleyway, pressing his back against the brick wall. They were deep in the industrial district now, old warehouses, rusted fences, shattered windows. "A ghost town. We'll be safe here for a few minutes," he said, scanning the area. Maya could barely stand still, her whole body vibrated with adrenaline, with fury, with helplessness. She whirled on him. "You need to tell me what's going on," she demanded. He didn't hesitate. "You were never supposed to know about me," he said. Maya's stomach tightened. "But Slater changed that," he continued. "And now, you're caught in something bigger than you understand." Maya's pulse pounded. "What does that mean?" He met her gaze, his dark eyes full of something unreadable. "It means Slater's not the real problem," he said. Maya stiffened. "What?" Her father exhaled, glancing toward the end of the alley before turning back to her. "He's just a foot soldier," he said. "The people he works for. They run this whole town. The cops, the judges, the mayor. They own it all." Maya felt the world tilt sideways. No, this couldn't be real. She was just a normal girl, a nobody. How had she suddenly become public enemy number one? She shook her head. "This is insane," she muttered. Her father's expression didn't change. "Welcome to the truth," he said. Before Maya could process any of it, a new sound echoed in the distance. Engines, multiple, getting closer, Maya's blood ran cold. Her father turned toward the sound, his body tensing. Maya clenched her fists. She wasn't just running anymore. This wasn't just about survival. This was a war, and she was ready to fight. The low, guttural growl of engines echoed down the narrow alleyway, sending a shiver up Maya's spine. Her father's body went rigid. Maya barely had time to react before he grabbed her arm and pulled her behind a rusted dumpster. "Stay low," he whispered. Maya crouched, pressing her back against the cold metal as headlights sliced through the darkness, illuminating the alley in sharp beams of white. She peeked out. 3 black SUVs rolled in slowly, their engines purring like predators in the night. Maya's heart thundered in her chest. She could see the silhouettes of men inside, big, heavy figures, their faces hidden in shadows. Then, the doors swung open, men stepped out. Armed men. Maya's breath caught. These weren't just regular cops, their tactical vests, the way they moved with deadly precision. This was something else, something worse. Maya turned to her father, her pulse hammering. "Who are they?" she whispered. His expression was grim. "Not cops," he murmured. "Not anymore." Maya swallowed hard. The men fanned out, sweeping flashlights across the alley. A deep voice barked an order: "Find them." Maya's stomach tightened like a vice. They were hunting them. Her father's eyes flicked around, calculating. Then he leaned in close. "We have one shot at getting out of here," he murmured. "When I say run, you run." Maya hesitated. But, his hand tightened around her wrist. No arguments. Before she could protest, one of the men froze. Maya saw it happen in slow motion. His flashlight lingered just a second too long near their hiding spot. His body tensed. Then, "Over here," he shouted. Maya's father moved like lightning. He exploded from cover, his body a blur of motion. Before the man could react, her father slammed an elbow into his throat, cutting off his cry. The man choked, stumbling back. Another one raised his rifle. Maya's father yanked her up and shoved her forward. "Run." Maya's feet kicked into motion before her brain even caught up. She tore down the alleyway, heart slamming against her ribs as shouts and gunfire erupted behind her. Bullets ripped into the brick walls, sending shards of concrete raining down. Maya ducked low, sprinting as fast as her legs could carry her. Ahead, an old chain-link fence. Maya's father reached it first. Without breaking stride, he grabbed the top and vaulted over with ease. Maya skidded to a stop. Her breath came ragged and desperate. She turned back. The armed men were closing in fast. No time. She launched herself at the fence. Fingers gripping the freezing metal, she climbed. Higher, higher. Then, a hand snatched her ankle. Maya screamed. The man yanked her down hard, her body slamming into the pavement with a bone-jarring impact. Pain exploded through her ribs. The world spun. A flashlight blinded her, voices barking orders: "Stay down." Maya struggled, kicking wildly. Then her father was there. He moved so fast she barely saw him. 1 second, the man gripping her ankle was standing. The next, he was on the ground, his body limp. Maya scrambled to her feet, gasping for breath. Her father pulled her up, his eyes flashing with something deadly. "Move." Maya didn't hesitate this time. She sprinted, through the alley, through the dark, away. The gunfire faded behind them, but Maya knew this wasn't over. They ran for blocks, through abandoned streets, past flickering streetlights, until the sounds of pursuit were a distant echo. Maya's lungs burned, her body ached. Her father finally slowed near an old, run-down warehouse. He pulled her inside, shutting the heavy metal door behind them. Darkness swallowed them whole. Maya collapsed against a crate, struggling to catch her breath. She turned to her father. "What the hell was that?" she demanded. His face was grim. "They weren't here to arrest us," he said. "They were here to kill us." Maya's stomach dropped, her breath came fast and shallow. This wasn't just about Slater anymore, this was bigger. Way bigger. She swallowed hard, her mind whirling. "Why?" Her father exhaled. "Because you're a threat now," he said. "And they don't leave threats alive." Maya felt the weight of those words settle over her like a heavy stone. Threat. She wasn't just some random girl anymore. She wasn't a victim. She was a target. Her father leaned forward, his eyes sharp, serious. "They won't stop," he said. "Not until we stop them first." Maya's pulse pounded. She thought of her mother, still trapped, still in danger, and Slater, that smug, sick bastard. She clenched her fists. She was done running. She turned to her father, fire burning in her veins. "Then let's stop them." His gaze held hers for a long moment. Then, a slow, grim smile spread across his face. "Now you're thinking like my daughter." The air inside the warehouse was thick with dust and the scent of old oil. Maya wiped the sweat from her forehead, her heart still pounding from the chase. Her father paced in front of her, checking his weapons, his jaw tight with focus. "We don't have much time," he muttered. Maya swallowed, her hands still shaking. "They're going to come back, aren't they?" Her father looked at her, his eyes unreadable. "They won't stop until they're sure we're dead." A cold shiver ran down Maya's spine. "Then we need to go after them first," she said. Her father studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Exactly." He pulled out a crumpled piece of paper and unfolded it. "I pulled this off one of those guys before we ran. It's a list of safe houses and meeting points. If we move fast, we can hit them before they even realize we're coming." Maya's eyes darted across the page. One location stood out, a bar on the edge of town, a known hideout for dirty cops. Her stomach twisted. "Slater's going to be there, isn't he?" Her father's jaw clenched. "If he's not there, someone who knows where he is will be." Maya felt the rage bubbling inside her, raw and unfiltered. Slater had taken everything from her, her dignity, her peace, her safety. And he wasn't going to get away with it. Her father handed her a pistol. She hesitated. "I don't," he cut her off. "If you freeze when it counts, we both die." His voice was firm, but not unkind. "You don't need to be a killer. You just need to survive." Maya took a deep breath and closed her fingers around the cold steel. "I'm ready." Her father gave a short nod. "Let's move." The bar was a dive. Dim neon lights flickered above the entrance, casting a sickly green glow on the cracked pavement outside. Maya and her father parked a block away, moving on foot. From across the street, Maya could see them, at least a dozen men, all of them armed, all of them dangerous. She swallowed. This wasn't just any bar. This was their stronghold. Her father leaned in. "We're not walking in the front door. We go in from the back." Maya followed him as he crept through the alley. The night air humming with distant sirens. At the back entrance, he pulled a knife from his belt and slid it between the door and the frame. With a flick of his wrist, the lock popped open. They slipped inside. The hallway was dark and narrow, the smell of stale beer and cigarette smoke thick in the air. Voices drifted from the main room, loud, arrogant laughter. Maya felt her chest tighten. Slater was in there. She could hear his voice. That same sick, mocking tone that had haunted her nightmares. Stupid little girl thought she could get away. His voice dripped with amusement. "She cried like a baby. Just like I knew she would." Laughter erupted. Maya's vision went red. Her father touched her shoulder, just a light press, a reminder to stay calm. "Not yet." They moved forward, stepping carefully, silently. Then, her father struck. He burst into the room, a flash of motion and gunfire. Maya ducked behind a table as chaos exploded. Men scrambled for their weapons. Too late, her father moved like a predator among prey, cutting them down with ruthless precision. Maya saw Slater's face twist in shock. Then fear. The fight was over in seconds. The men lay sprawled across the floor, groaning or completely still. Maya rose, gripping the pistol in her shaking hands. Her father stood over Slater, his gun pressed against his temple. Slater's breath came in sharp, ragged gasps. He wasn't laughing anymore. Maya stepped forward. Slater's eyes snapped to hers. Recognition dawned, followed by something else, something new, pure, naked terror. "W8, Maya's father cocked the gun. Slater flinched. Maya took another step, and then, her father spoke. His voice was low, deadly. "You really should have checked who her father was before you put your hands on her." Slater's face drained of color, his lips trembled. Maya saw it, the moment he realized, the horror. The dawning comprehension, the weight of his biggest mistake. Her father leaned in, his eyes cold. "I was going to let you live." Maya saw it coming, the moment Slater tried to lunge. But her father was faster. The gun went off. Slater collapsed. The room fell silent. Maya stood there, her breath coming hard and fast. She should have felt relief, but she didn't. She felt nothing. Her father turned to her. "It's over." Maya swallowed, her fingers still trembling. It didn't feel over, because deep down, she knew, this was just the beginning. The silence in the bar was suffocating. Maya's eyes lingered on the body of Slater, sprawled lifeless on the cold floor. Her father's words echoed in her mind, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She had been expecting to feel some form of satisfaction, but all she felt was an emptiness that gnawed at her. Her father holstered his weapon and motioned for her to follow. "We need to get out of here, Maya." She nodded, though she wasn't sure she was ready to leave. She wanted to look around, to make sure everything was over. She glanced at the men scattered around the room, some of them twitching in their final moments. but her father was already moving, quick and purposeful. "We have to move fast. They're not far behind." Maya forced herself to follow, her boots clicking on the concrete floor. She stayed close, the weight of what had just happened starting to hit her in waves. Her father's voice broke the silence, low and urgent. "We'll regroup at the safe house. We can't waste any more time here." They slipped out the back door, moving swiftly into the dark alley. The cold night air hit Maya's face, but it did little to clear the fog that had settled over her mind. Her thoughts were a whirlwind, each one faster than the last, and none of them made sense. She had just killed a man, someone who had humiliated her, hurt her, and broken her in ways she still couldn't understand. And yet, here she was, walking away from it as though it was just another job done. As they moved through the alley, her father stopped suddenly, holding up a hand. Maya's pulse quickened as she followed his gaze to a figure moving in the distance. He stepped forward, pushing her behind him. Her father was already calculating, already thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead. His body was tense, his posture ready for anything. But Maya wasn't so sure. She peered around her father's shoulder, squinting at the figure emerging from the shadows. The streetlights above barely illuminated the figure's face, but the shape was unmistakable. Another cop. Another one of Slater's associates. Her father's voice was barely a whisper. "Get back to the car. I'll handle this." Maya hesitated. She wanted to argue, to tell him they needed to stick together, but the look in his eyes stopped her. There was no room for debate. "I'll be right behind you," her father added, his tone final. She nodded, moving back toward the car with slow, deliberate steps. Her heart was in her throat as she tried to suppress the trembling in her legs. She didn't understand what was happening. Why was this still going on? Weren't they finished with Slater and his men? She reached the car and ducked into the driver's seat, her hands gripping the wheel with white knuckles. She glanced back at her father, who was now face to face with the cop. They exchanged words, but Maya couldn't hear them. All she could do was wait. Minutes felt like hours as she sat there, watching her father. The tension between them was palpable, even from where she sat. Then, suddenly, her father moved with a speed she hadn't expected. He lunged, taking the cop down with a swift motion. Maya barely had time to blink before her father had the cop pinned, his knee digging into the man's back. The sound of a gunshot echoed through the alley. Maya's heart stopped. She didn't know where the shot came from, but she didn't care. All that mattered was that her father wasn't moving. "Get out of the car." A voice shouted, and Maya jerked around to see another figure, another cop, aiming a gun at her. Without thinking, she flung open the car door, rolling out and onto the cold pavement. She scrambled to her feet, heart racing as she scanned for her father. The alley was quiet again. Too quiet. Maya rushed toward the spot where she had seen her father fall. Her breath caught in her throat when she saw him, still alive, but barely. His body was limp, his breathing shallow, his face pale. "Maya." He rasped. She knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she checked for his wounds. Blood soaked his shirt, but there was no time to panic. He needed help. "Stay with me," she urged, her voice breaking. "Please, stay with me." Her father gripped her wrist weakly. "They're coming," he said. His voice low. "You need to go. Now." Maya shook her head. "I'm not leaving you. Not like this." He forced a weak smile. "You don't have a choice. If you stay here, they'll find us both. I won't let you die for me." Tears welled up in her eyes, but she blinked them away. She couldn't afford to be weak now, not when everything was on the line. "I'm not leaving you. Maya." His voice was a whisper, but it was enough to make her listen. "You know what you have to do. You know what this means." Her chest tightened. He was right. She had no choice. She had to finish what they had started. She had to survive. With one last look at her father, she rose to her feet. The cop who had shot him was still nowhere to be seen. But Maya could feel the danger closing in. She moved quickly, scanning the shadows, her heart hammering in her chest. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about making sure that this, what Slater had started, ended once and for all. The world around her felt like it was closing in, but she knew she couldn't back down now. She had come too far, and then, in the distance, she saw them, more cops. More of Slater's men, this wasn't over. Not yet. Maya's heart pounded in her chest as she crouched behind a stack of old crates, her mind racing. She had expected this, but that didn't make the reality any less terrifying. The dark silhouettes of the cops were moving closer, their footsteps heavy and deliberate, echoing off the walls of the alley. Her father's condition was deteriorating by the second, and the time for hesitation was long gone. She glanced back at him. His chest rose and fell shallowly, his hand still gripping her wrist with a strength that surprised her. His eyes were glazed, unfocused, but when he saw her looking, he tried to offer a reassuring smile. She returned it weakly, but there was no time for comfort now. Her survival instincts were kicking in, survival for both of them. Maya glanced around, searching for an escape route. She couldn't let these cops find her, not with her father in this condition. They wouldn't hesitate to finish what they started. There was a fire escape ladder a few feet away, just above eye level. It wasn't a guaranteed way out, but it was their best shot. Maya took a deep breath and moved quietly toward the ladder, her boots barely making a sound against the cold ground. She kept her body low to the ground, moving quickly yet carefully. Her mind raced through scenarios, her thoughts flicking from one idea to the next. If she could get up to the roof, she might be able to lose them in the maze of alleyways and rooftops. But she had to get there first. She reached the fire escape and grasped the bottom rung, pausing to check the alley one last time. The cops were getting closer, their voices growing louder, and Maya knew she didn't have much time. The decision was made. She had to move. With a quick, silent grunt, she began to climb, her hands gripping the cold metal of the ladder. The rungs creaked under her weight, but she didn't dare stop or slow down. She couldn't afford to be seen. She reached the top of the fire escape in a matter of seconds, her breath quick and shallow from the exertion. Maya paused at the top, looking down at her father. He had tried to sit up but failed, his face contorted in pain. She wanted to stay with him, but there was no time. Her mind screamed at her to go, to save herself, to save him, but before she could make another move, a voice came from the alley below. Where did she go? Maya froze. Her heart skipped a beat. It was one of the cops. She crouched low, pressing her back against the cold, rough surface of the building. She couldn't see them, but she could hear them moving around below her, their boots scraping against the gravel. They were getting closer to the fire escape. If they looked up, they would see her. Maya held her breath, praying they wouldn't spot her. She pressed her body against the building, trying to make herself as small as possible. Her mind raced through her options. None of them were good. She could jump down to the next level, but that might give her away. She could climb higher, but the roof was too far up. She could run, but they'd catch her. The voice came again, more insistent this time. She's gotta be around here somewhere. Search the roof. Her stomach dropped. There was no escaping them. They were going to find her. In that moment of panic, Maya's mind snapped back to her training. Her father had taught her how to think on her feet, how to make the impossible work in her favor. If there was one thing she knew, it was that she couldn't let them catch her. The fire escape ladder was still in her grasp. And she glanced down again. If she could just make it to the ground quietly, she might be able to escape. She needed to be quick. She needed to be precise. Taking a deep breath, Maya began her descent. Her movements were fluid, practiced, just like she had been taught. As she dropped down, she caught sight of her father one last time. His eyes were closed now, and his breathing had slowed, becoming ragged. She didn't have time to waste. She hit the ground lightly, her knees bending to absorb the shock. She stayed low, moving toward the alley's edge where the shadows would conceal her. The cops were only a few steps away, and the seconds felt like hours. They were getting closer, much closer. Maya's pulse thudded in her ears. She moved again, creeping along the perimeter of the alley, keeping to the shadows. She could hear them now, speaking in low voices as they moved. One of them was getting close to the spot where she had just been standing. Just when it seemed like they would find her, Maya darted around a corner, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She moved swiftly, silently, her body a blur in the dark. She had to stay ahead of them, had to remain one step ahead. There was no turning back now. Her mind flashed back to her father's words as he lay on the ground. He'd told her to survive. He'd told her to finish it. She couldn't let it end like this. She wouldn't. She glanced behind her just once, and the sight that met her eyes froze her in her tracks. A new figure had entered the alley. This one wasn't a cop. It was a shadowy figure that Maya recognized immediately. Her heart skipped a beat. It was a man she had seen before, someone who had been watching her from the sidelines all along. And he was walking straight toward her. Maya's heart hammered in her chest, her breath hitching as she ducked further into the shadows. The figure approaching was unmistakable, tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in a dark jacket, his face partially hidden beneath the brim of a cap. She had seen him before, though she wasn't sure where. The last thing she needed now was an unknown factor, especially one who could potentially make things worse. She continued to watch, barely daring to move. Her mind raced with questions. Who was he? How did he know where she was? But she didn't have time for answers. She had to stay hidden, keep her cover. As the man drew closer, Maya's body tensed, ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. Her eyes never left him. He stopped a few feet away from where she crouched, glancing around with a subtle, practiced scan. His movements were deliberate, as if he knew exactly what he was doing. Then, he turned his head slightly, as if sensing something, or someone, watching him. Maya's breath caught in her throat. She had to move. She had to get out of there before he realized she was so close, but before she could take another step, the man spoke, his voice low, calm, and oddly familiar. You're not as good at hiding as you think. Maya froze, her entire body stiffening at the sound of his voice. It was that voice, one she had heard before. The voice of someone who had been tracking her every move. Watching her from afar, it couldn't be. She cautiously peered around the corner, trying to get a better look at him. His face was now fully visible, and as soon as she saw it, recognition hit her like a lightning bolt. It was him, the man who had been in the background for days, watching from the shadows. The one who had been lurking at the edges of her world, like a ghost. Her mind screamed in disbelief. How had he found her? How had he known where she was hiding? The man's gaze met hers, and for a moment, it was like time stopped. There was no doubt now. He knew exactly who she was. He smiled, a small, unsettling smirk that only deepened the fear churning in her stomach. I knew you'd be here, he said, his voice smooth and controlled. Didn't think it'd be this easy, but here we are. Maya's fingers curled into fists, her thoughts spinning. She didn't have much time. She had to act, now. She whispered, her voice tight with tension. What do you want from me? The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he studied her, his eyes calculating, assessing. He took a step forward, but Maya instinctively took a step back, her back now pressed against the wall. She felt trapped, like an animal cornered by a predator. I'm not here to hurt you, he said finally, his voice almost soothing, like he was trying to placate her. I just want to talk. Maya's mind raced as she considered her options. Talking? Now. When everything was spiraling out of control, I don't have time for talk, she snapped, her pulse quickening. I'm not interested in anything you have to say. But the man wasn't fazed. He simply tilted his head, his smirk widening. Of course you don't. But you're going to listen, whether you like it or not. Because if you don't, things are going to get messy. Maya's eyes narrowed. Her instincts screamed at her to stay alert, to trust no one, especially not him. But there was something in his tone, something in the way he said messy that made her spine chill. She couldn't back down. Not now. Not when her father's life hung in the balance. And these cops were still hot on her trail. Who are you? She demanded, her voice rising slightly. What do you want with me? The man's smile faded, and for the first time, his expression turned serious. He took another step toward her, closing the distance between them. His presence seemed to fill the alleyway, pressing down on her. The air around them felt heavier, charged with an unspoken tension. You're in deeper than you think, he said, his words slow and deliberate. And the people after you? They're not who you think they are either. Maya blinked, her mind trying to process the implications of his words. What did he mean by that? Who were the people after her? Before she could ask, she heard the familiar sound of footsteps, shuffling, scraping against the gravel. It was the cops. They were coming, and they were coming fast. The man looked over his shoulder, his eyes flicking back to Maya. We don't have much time. We need to move. Maya's heart leaped in her chest. Her mind told her to run, but her body was frozen in place, as if her feet were glued to the ground. Who was this man? Could she trust him? Or was he just another player in this game of cat and mouse? I can help you, the man said, as if sensing her hesitation. But you have to trust me. You don't have much of a choice. Her instincts screamed at her to be wary. But the cops were closing in. And time was running out. She needed help. She needed answers. With one final glance at the man's face, Maya made her decision. Fine, she said, her voice tight with resolve. I'm trusting you. But if you betray me, I'll make you regret it. The man's smile returned, though it was colder this time. He nodded once, a flicker of approval in his eyes. Good, he said simply. Now, let's get out of here before those cops find us. Maya's heart pounded in her chest as she followed the mysterious man through the narrow alleyway, the sound of approaching footsteps growing louder by the second. The urgency in his movements matched the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She didn't know whether to trust him completely, but right now, he was the only option she had. The man led her around a corner and down a series of cramped back streets, the air thick with tension. They were moving fast, but there was no panic in his movements. He was in control, confident. He knew what he was doing. Maya, on the other hand, felt anything but in control. Her mind was racing, every step forward a new question, every corner turned another uncertainty. What had she gotten herself into? Who was this man, really? And most importantly, how far did he think she would go along with whatever game he was playing? They reached a dilapidated building at the edge of the block, an old warehouse that looked like it had been abandoned for years. The man moved swiftly to the entrance, a heavy steel door that creaked as he pulled it open. Inside, he said, his voice firm but not unkind. Maya hesitated for only a moment before she stepped into the darkness beyond the door. The interior of the warehouse was dim, the only light coming from a single, flickering bulb overhead. The air smelled stale, musty. Old crates and barrels were scattered across the floor. And the place felt as if it hadn't seen human activity in decades. Maya's nerves were on edge, but she kept her focus. The man had led her here for a reason. There had to be something he was going to explain. He turned to face her, his features now fully visible in the dim light. He didn't look like a typical cop or a thug. His expression was unreadable, but there was a certain coldness to it that made her skin crawl. I know you're scared, he said, his voice soft but with an edge that sent a chill down her spine. But you need to understand something. The people who are after you, they're not just after you because of your father. They're after something much bigger. Something that goes deeper than you realize. Maya's mind raced. Her father. This all started because of her father. But what did he mean by something bigger? Before she could respond, the man continued, there's a network. A system. And your father is a part of it. But not just any part. He's been one of the key players for years. What you don't know is that his influence stretches far beyond what you see. There are powerful people who want him, and they'll do anything to get their hands on him. Maya's thoughts spun. She had always known her father was important, but she had never imagined the scope of his reach. But why me? She asked, her voice shaking. Why are they after me? The man studied her for a long moment. And for a second, Maya could see something: regret? Pity? It was hard to tell, but it disappeared as quickly as it had come. Because you're his daughter, he said simply. And they'll use you to get to him. They think you're the leverage they need. Maya's stomach churned. This was bigger than she had ever imagined. The danger wasn't just about her now, it was about everything her father had built, everything he was connected to. Who are these people? She demanded. Why can't you just help me get to my father? He shook his head, his expression darkening. It's not that simple. There are people you don't want to get involved with. People who have their hands in everything. You think the cops are bad? They're nothing compared to the people pulling the strings. And your father, he's been playing a dangerous game for a long time. Maya took a deep breath, trying to process everything. She couldn't ignore the urgency in his voice, the fear he was trying to mask. We have to act fast, the man said, his voice hardening. They know where you are now. The cops might not be the biggest threat, but the people they're working with, they are. Just as he finished speaking, Maya heard the unmistakable sound of sirens in the distance, growing louder by the second. The man cursed under his breath and grabbed her arm, pulling her toward a set of stairs leading to a second level of the warehouse. We need to get you out of here, now. Maya barely had time to react. She followed him up the stairs, her mind still spinning from the revelation that her father's enemies were closer than she had ever imagined. She had been running from the law, but now, she was running from something even more dangerous. They reached a small, secure room at the top of the warehouse. The man quickly locked the door behind them and turned to her. "Stay here. I'll handle the rest," he said. "You'll be safe for now." Maya nodded, her mind reeling. She didn't know who this man truly was or what his intentions were, but one thing was clear: she had no other choice but to trust him, for now, as the sound of the sirens grew closer. She looked out the small, grimy window. Her heart raced. She didn't know what was coming next, but she knew one thing for sure. Her life had changed forever, and whatever happened next, it would be far more dangerous than anything she could have imagined. Thank you for joining us on this wild, twist-filled journey. We hope you enjoyed every suspenseful moment and unexpected turn of the story. If you liked what you saw, please hit that like button, subscribe for more gripping tales, and share the video with your friends. We'd also love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What did you think of the shocking revelations, and which moment left you on the edge of your seat? Stay tuned for more, and until next time, thanks for watching.